The rain had been falling all morning, drumming against the tin roof of the small repair shop I rented on the corner of Maple and 6th. The sign outside still said Jack's Auto, even though Jack had sold it years ago and all that was left of him were the faded letters and a stack of unpaid bills. I wasn't supposed to inherit the mess, but after college, when everything else fell apart, fixing engines became the only thing that made sense. The noise, the grease, the solitude, it was a kind of therapy. That morning she pulled up in a silver Mercedes that didn't belong in my part of town. The car looked perfect from a distance, but as it rolled closer, I noticed a trembling rattle in the front left tire and a trail of oil stains following it like a secret. She stepped out with an umbrella so large it could have covered a small family. I remember her perfume cutting through the smell of oil and metal. It wasn't cheap. She looked at me like she'd walked into the wrong place, like I was some mistake life had thrown in her path. "My car's making a weird sound," she said flatly, glancing around the shop. "Can you fix it?" I wiped my hands on a rag and nodded. "Sure, leave it here for a few hours, I'll take a look." She frowned like waiting was an inconvenience she couldn't afford. "I need it by tonight, it's important." Her tone carried weight, something unspoken. I didn't ask questions. People like her didn't like being questioned by people like me. I just smiled and said, "I'll see what I can do." "What?" She turned to leave, then paused at the door. "Be careful with it, it was my father's." That detail stayed with me even after she drove off in a rideshare, her perfume lingering in the air. There was something about the way she said it, half warning, half regret. I got to work. The engine was an older model, classic German craftsmanship, expensive, precise, unforgiving. As I removed the air filter, I found something odd. One of the bolts wasn't factory standard. It was newer, out of place. I unscrewed it carefully and the metal panel beneath shifted loose. Hidden behind it was a small compartment I'd never seen before in that model of car. My pulse quickened. Inside, there was a wrapped package, roughly the size of a paperback. No label, no tape, just thick brown paper tied with an old string. At first, I thought it was drugs or maybe cash. People hide strange things when they don't trust banks or family. I hesitated, curiosity won. I sliced the string open with my utility knife. Inside were several old documents, their corners yellowed and edges fragile. I pulled one free. It was a deed dated 1993 for a property in Manhattan. My name wasn't on it, but the owner listed was a company I vaguely recognized from business news, Helton and Reeve Industries. I checked the rest, more papers, some handwritten notes, and one small, folded envelope marked simply, "For Claire." The woman's name, my chest tightened. I shouldn't have opened it, but the moment felt like standing at the edge of something much bigger than me. Against my better judgment, I unfolded the note. It was short, barely a paragraph, but it changed everything. "Claire, if you're reading this, it means the truth has caught up to us. The company wasn't built clean. They'll come for what's left. Keep this car safe. It's the only proof of what really happened. Inside the lining, you'll find the account key. Trust no one, not even the lawyers." I read it twice, my hands trembling slightly. Account key, proof, what company? The ink had faded too much to see the signature clearly, but the initials AR were legible. That night I barely slept. I couldn't stop thinking about her face when she'd said it was her father's car. The next morning, before she returned, I checked the compartment again. Beneath the papers glued into the inner frame was a microchip sealed in a thin metal casing. I didn't know much about tech, but it was definitely not standard automotive equipment. I cleaned my hands, stood back, and stared at the car like it was suddenly alive, like it had a secret heartbeat. When she arrived that afternoon, she seemed nervous, scanning the street before stepping in. "Is it done?" she asked. "Almost," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "There's something you should see." Her eyes narrowed. "What do you mean?" I gestured to the engine. "There's a hidden compartment. Inside it, I found something, documents, a note addressed to you." Her expression froze, the color drained from her face. "You opened it?" she asked quietly, her voice thin and dangerous. I swallowed. I didn't mean to. It looked unusual. She exhaled sharply and pressed a hand against her forehead. "You shouldn't have touched anything." "I figured it might be important." "Important?" She laughed softly, but there was no humor in it. "You have no idea what you've done." She looked around again, as if expecting someone to appear from the shadows. Her hands were trembling now, barely noticeable, but there. "Did you tell anyone?" "No," I said quickly, "just me." She nodded, then stepped closer, her voice dropping. "Whatever you saw, forget it. I'll pay you double for the repair, just say nothing." I wanted to ask why. I wanted to understand what I had stumbled into. But something in her eyes stopped me, the kind of fear that doesn't come from guilt but from knowing too much. I nodded slowly. "All right." She handed me a folded stack of cash, more than I'd made all month, then got in the car. Before starting the engine, she rolled down the window. "If anyone asks, you never saw this car, you never saw me." And then she drove away, the silver Mercedes disappearing into the rain. That night, after locking up, I found myself staring at the shop door long after closing. The rain had stopped, but the sound of her words echoed in my head. I walked back to the workbench, picked up the rag I'd used earlier and froze. Lying beneath it, where I'd set down the package before she arrived, was something I hadn't noticed before, a small metal key. Thin, engraved with the letters H and R. It didn't belong to me, and she hadn't taken it with her. I turned it over in my hand, a faint chill running down my spine. Somewhere between the lines of her father's note and that hidden chip, I knew this wasn't over. Whatever I had uncovered inside that Mercedes, it wasn't just a secret, it was an invitation. The next morning, I woke up with the key still on my workbench, catching the first beam of sunlight through the dusty window. The letters H and R shimmered faintly, and I couldn't stop staring at them. I didn't know why, but something about that car, about Claire, felt unfinished. I should have just tossed the key into a drawer and forgotten it existed. But people like me don't stumble upon million-dollar secrets every day. Curiosity is a dangerous thing when you have nothing to lose. I tried searching H&R Industries online, and within seconds hundreds of articles appeared. Corporate acquisitions, legal disputes, old scandals, nothing recent, but one name kept popping up. Alan Reeve, founder, disappeared in 2010 after an investigation into missing company funds. The same initials as on the note, AR. I leaned back in my chair. If Claire's father was Alan Reeve, then that car wasn't just a family heirloom, it was evidence. By noon, the shop felt too small, like the walls were closing in. Every sound, the hum of the fridge, the ticking of the wall clock, felt sharper, louder. I packed a bag, slid the key into my pocket, and drove to the address listed on one of the old deeds I had photographed from the documents. Midtown Manhattan, the kind of building where a month's rent could buy my entire block. The security guard at the lobby desk looked at me like I didn't belong there, and he was right. I told him I had an appointment with the property manager, which wasn't entirely a lie, I just hadn't made it yet. When the elevator doors opened on the 12th floor, the hallway smelled faintly of lemon polish and money. Every door had a brass plaque, every wall a mirror. At the end of the hall, I found the suite from the deed, Reeve Holdings. I knocked, no answer. The glass door was half open, the lights dimmed, like the place had been abandoned in a hurry. Inside, the air felt stale. Dust clung to every surface except for one, an empty safe embedded in the wall. Its lock plate bore the same engraved initials, H and R. That's when I realized the key I had wasn't for a door, it was for this. I turned it slowly. The safe clicked open with a quiet metallic sigh. Inside, a single black folder sat neatly in the center, untouched by dust. My pulse thudded in my ears as I opened it. There were photographs, bank statements, offshore account records, all stamped with the name Helton and Reeve. I didn't understand most of the legal jargon, but one thing was clear. Someone had funneled millions of dollars through fake subsidiaries, and whoever left that note for Claire was trying to keep her out of it or save her from it. Behind me, a floorboard creaked. My stomach tightened. Interesting find, a voice said. I turned sharply. A man stood at the door, late 40s, sharp suit, expression colder than the steel in his cufflinks. He held a phone in one hand as if he'd just finished a call. You must be the mechanic, he said smoothly. My mouth went dry. How do you? Claire told me, he interrupted, stepping closer. You fixed her car, didn't you? I didn't answer, he smiled faintly. You should have stayed out of this. I glanced toward the folder. His eyes followed, narrowing. Where is it? He asked quietly. I don't know what you're talking about, I said, trying to sound confident, but my voice betrayed me. He took another step forward. Alan's secrets died with him, he said, but some people just can't let things stay buried. What? He reached for the folder, but I grabbed it first. You don't want to do that, he said calmly. Why? I shot back. Because it proves you've been stealing. That earned me a small, dangerous smile, because it proves you know too much. He lunged faster than I expected. The folder slipped from my grip and hit the floor, papers scattering across the polished wood. I ducked past him and ran. My shoulder hit the glass door, shattering part of it, but I didn't stop. I bolted down the hall and into the elevator, slamming the close button until the door sealed shut. My chest burned and my hands shook as I held onto the railing. I caught my reflection in the elevator mirror, sweat, panic, disbelief. I wasn't just a mechanic anymore, I was a liability. Outside, the city looked the same as always, busy, indifferent. But I knew someone would come looking for that folder, maybe even for me. So I did the only thing I could think of. I drove back to the shop and locked every door. For hours, I sat there, lights off, watching the rain streak down the window again, the same rhythm as the night she first arrived. My mind replayed every detail, her trembling voice, the note, the documents. If Alan Reeve's disappearance was connected to that money, then Claire wasn't the villain, she was the target. At midnight, a car pulled up outside. Headlights swept across the shop walls and I froze. The engine idled for a moment before shutting off. I moved closer to the window, careful not to be seen. A silhouette stepped out, tall, slim, wearing a coat too expensive for this neighborhood. For a second I thought it was her, then the figure turned and I saw it was the same man from the building. He stood there, scanning the shop, his breath visible in the cold air. I backed away from the window. The doorknob rattled once, twice, then stopped. A long silence followed. Finally, I heard the sound of his shoes fading away, the car engine starting again, and then nothing. I didn't sleep that night. By morning, I'd made up my mind. I couldn't stay here. If what I found was worth killing for, then I needed to know why. I gathered everything, photos, copies of the documents, the key, and packed them into a small duffel bag. Before leaving, I placed a "closed for repairs" sign on the shop window. A lie maybe, but not entirely, because I was broken too in a different way. As I pulled onto the highway, the sun rose behind me, washing the wet asphalt in gold. I didn't know where I was going yet, maybe to find Claire, maybe to finish what her father started, but deep down I knew this. Somewhere out there, behind the lies and the missing millions, was a truth that had been buried too long. And now, because of one broken car and one stupid decision, I was the only one left who could uncover it. 3 hours outside the city, the highway turned into narrow roads lined with pine trees. The GPS signal kept cutting out, but the address I found in the folder, one scribbled on the back of a letter, was burned into my mind. It led to a place called Millstone Valley, the kind of town that looked like time had packed up and left decades ago. As I drove through, I noticed the old gas station, a diner with peeling paint, and a post office so small it could fit inside my shop. But on the outskirts, past a dirt trail barely wide enough for one car, there was a tall iron gate. Behind it stood an old colonial house, windows dark, roof covered in ivy. I parked and got out, my boots sinking slightly into the mud. A faint hum of electricity buzzed from somewhere behind the trees, maybe an old generator or security fence. I hesitated before pushing the gate open. The metal groaned, loud enough to announce my arrival. The air smelled like wet wood and rust. As I walked up the stone path, something about the silence felt wrong, too deliberate, like the house was holding its breath. The front door was locked, but I noticed a smaller side entrance near the garage. The lock was old and the key H&R fit perfectly. The door clicked open. Inside, the air was stale, heavy with dust and faint traces of perfume. Furniture sat under white sheets, paintings covered, light seeping through cracks in the curtains. Every step echoed through the empty hallways. On the living room table, I found a photograph. A man stood beside a car, the same silver Mercedes, smiling with a young girl perched on his shoulders, Alan, Reeve, and Claire. The back of the photo had a handwritten note, "For when the truth becomes too heavy to carry." I pocketed the photo. Upstairs, I found what looked like a study. Papers were scattered across the floor, drawers yanked open, a laptop smashed in half. Someone had already been here. But one thing caught my eye, a map pinned to the wall with several red circles drawn around locations across the state. One of them was right here, Millstone Valley. Another was circled in bold red near the coastline with a note beside it, "Safe House 2, key transfer pending." That word transfer stood out. I sat at the desk trying to piece everything together. If Alan was hiding assets, maybe those circles marked where he'd stored them. But before I could think further, headlights flashed outside. My heart jumped. I ducked behind the curtain and peered through a gap. A black SUV had stopped near the gate. 2 men stepped out, both wearing dark coats. One of them was the man from the office building. He'd found me. I slipped out the back door and ran through the overgrown garden. The ground was slick with rain, branches clawing at my jacket. Behind me, I heard the crunch of boots on gravel. "He's here." One of them shouted. I didn't look back. I reached the tree line and ducked behind a fallen log, catching my breath. The men split up, their flashlights cutting through the dark. One beam passed so close I could see dust swirling in the air. I waited, heart pounding, until their voices faded deeper into the woods. When I finally crawled out, I saw the faint glow of an old barn in the distance. Its doors were cracked open, light flickering inside. I approached cautiously. Inside, an old generator hummed weakly, powering a single overhead bulb, and sitting on a wooden crate beneath it was Claire. She looked exhausted, her hair damp from the rain, eyes rimmed red. When she saw me, her expression hardened. "You shouldn't have come here," she said. "I didn't have a choice," I replied. "They're following me. Whoever those men are, they know everything." Her hands trembled as she stood. "You opened the safe." "Yes, and I found the folder." She closed her eyes, whispering something under her breath before meeting my gaze. "Then you know." "I know enough to realize your father wasn't just a businessman," I said. "And I know people are willing to kill for what he left behind." She walked toward the generator, turning a dial to lower the noise. "My father discovered that his partner, Helton, was laundering money through the company's subsidiaries. When he tried to expose it, they framed him. The investigation turned into a cover-up. By the time he realized how deep it went, it was too late. He disappeared to protect me." "And the chip?" I asked. "That chip contains the account keys to more than 20 shell companies, money that wasn't supposed to exist. He hid it in the car because it was the only place no one would think to look." I leaned against the wall, trying to process it all. "So now what? Those men are after you, not me." "They're after both of us now," she said quietly. "When you opened that compartment, you made yourself part of this." We stood in silence for a moment, the hum of the generator filling the space. Then she said, "There's one more location left. My father called it the fail-safe. It's on the coast near Fairwater. If we can reach it, maybe we can finish what he started." "Finish?" I asked. "You mean expose them?" She nodded. "He left everything ready. proof, records, even a video confession, but the last key was never delivered. I reached into my pocket and pulled out the small metal key. You mean this? Her eyes widened. You found it. I handed it to her. You dropped it in my shop. She turned it over in her hand, emotion flickering across her face. My father said the one who held this key would decide whether the truth lived or died. I didn't think it would be you. Neither did I said with a faint smile, but here we are. What? Outside, the faint rumble of engines echoed through the valley again. Claire's expression darkened. They found us. We killed the generator and ran out the back of the barn into the darkness. My truck was parked a quarter-mile away near the main road. We sprinted across the open field, the sound of engines growing louder behind us. A spotlight flared across the trees. Someone shouted. We dove behind a stone wall as bullets shattered a nearby fence post. Claire gasped, gripping the key tight. We have to move, I whispered. We crawled along the wall until I saw the faint shape of my truck in the distance. I counted to 3 and we ran. The engine roared to life on the first turn of the key. Tires spun against wet gravel as we tore down the narrow road. Behind us, headlights followed, closing fast. I pushed the gas pedal harder. The road twisted through the trees, barely wide enough for 2 cars. Claire held onto the dashboard, shouting directions between breaths. When we finally reached the main highway, the SUV's lights vanished behind us. I slowed down, chest heaving, eyes fixed on the empty road ahead. Claire looked out the window, the key glinting in her hand. Fairwater's 3 hours south, she said quietly. If we make it there, everything changes. I nodded, gripping the wheel tighter. Then we don't stop until we do. The road stretched endlessly under a sky turning orange with the setting sun. The truck's engine hummed steady, the only sound between us for miles. Claire sat in the passenger seat, her eyes fixed on the horizon, the metal key still clutched tightly in her hand. She hadn't said much since we left Millstone, and I didn't press her. Some silences don't need to be broken. After a while, she finally spoke. Fairwater's not just a town. My father bought an abandoned research facility there 20 years ago. He used it to store things that couldn't be traced to the company. If the failsafe still exists, it'll be there. What happens when we find it? I asked. We use it, she said simply, and everything they built will collapse. The conviction in her voice was steady, but her hands trembled slightly when she said it. I could tell she was scared, not just of the men chasing us, but of what we might uncover. We reached the coast just after midnight. Fairwater was smaller than I expected, mostly shuttered fishing shops and houses with boarded-up windows. The ocean stretched black and endless beyond the cliffs. The address from the map led us to an old industrial building near the docks, half buried under vines. A faded sign read North Shore Marine Research. I parked behind a rusted storage container. The air smelled of salt and decay. We moved quietly, flashlights cutting through the fog. The front door was chained, but a side window had already been pried open. Someone had been here recently. Inside, the air was cold, damp, filled with the echo of dripping water. Our footsteps sounded unnaturally loud against the concrete floor. Broken lab tables, scattered papers, and toppled equipment covered the space. Claire's flashlight landed on a wall lined with filing cabinets, most empty, but one had a label scratched in faint handwriting, Helton Project. We pulled the drawer open. Inside were blueprints, photographs of server rooms, and one sealed envelope labeled Protocol Omega. Claire tore it open carefully. Inside was a small card with a series of numbers, bank account IDs, routing codes, offshore links, and beneath it a note written in the same handwriting I had seen before. Claire, if this reaches you, the accounts are active. Transfer everything to the Foundation account under your name. The world deserves to know what they buried. Her hand shook as she held it. He wanted me to finish it, she whispered. Then let's finish it, I said. We searched the rest of the building until we found a metal door marked Storage B. The keypad beside it had faded, but the panel still glowed faintly when I touched it. I tried the numbers from the card. The lock clicked. Inside was a small, climate-controlled room filled with rows of black servers, blinking faintly like a heart still beating after death. Claire stepped forward, plugging a small external drive into the main console. The monitor flickered to life, displaying the Reeve Industries logo. Lines of data scrolled across the screen, transaction histories, company memos, emails marked confidential. She typed quickly, her face illuminated by the soft blue glow. He built this as a dead man's switch, she murmured. If something happened to him, this data would release automatically, but someone cut the network link before it could activate. So we reconnected, I said. She nodded. Once it uploads, there's no going back. Before she could continue, the sound of tires screeching outside echoed through the building. Claire froze. I killed the monitor light and pulled her behind one of the metal racks. The heavy steel door creaked open and footsteps entered multiple pairs. Voices followed, low and sharp. She's here, a man said. Find the servers. It was the same voice as before, the man from the office. I gestured for Claire to stay down. She nodded, clutching the key and the drive. The footsteps split into two directions. I picked up a metal rod from the floor, waited for one of them to pass, then swung hard. The impact dropped him instantly. I grabbed his radio and ducked behind another rack as the others called out. North wing secure. No response. Move in pairs, she's close. Claire whispered they'll destroy everything if they find it. Then we can't let them. I spotted the emergency power switch on the wall. If we could cut the lights, maybe we'd have a chance. I crept along the wall, avoiding their flashlights, and flipped the breaker. The entire building went dark. Chaos erupted, shouts, footsteps, the sound of gunmetal clanging against steel. I grabbed Claire's hand and we ran. She led me toward a maintenance tunnel at the back, half flooded with seawater. We splashed through, the cold biting at our legs. Behind us, one of the men fired, bullets ricocheting off the pipes. Go, I shouted. We emerged at the other end, stumbling out onto a narrow cliffside road. The moonlight shimmered over the ocean below. Claire clutched the drive like her life depended on it. Maybe it did. They'll be right behind us, I said. Where's the nearest connection point? There's an old lighthouse 2 miles north. It still has an active signal relay tower. We can send everything from there. We ran. The wind howled off the water, waves crashing against the rocks far below. My lungs burned, every breath heavy, but adrenaline pushed me forward. When we finally saw the lighthouse beam cutting through the fog, it felt like hope itself. We burst through the door, slamming it shut behind us. The power room still worked, humming faintly. Claire connected her drive to the relay terminal, typing fast. Lines of data filled the screen again. It's working, she said breathlessly, uploading the files. How long? 2 minutes. Outside, engines roared. Headlights cut through the fog again. The men were coming. I grabbed a wrench from a nearby shelf and braced myself near the door. The first kick splintered the wood. The second broke it open. The man stepped in, gun raised, eyes locked on Claire. I swung before he could fire. The wrench hit his arm, sending the gun skidding across the floor. He lunged, slamming me into the wall. The impact knocked the wind out of me. He reached for his weapon again, but Claire grabbed a metal pipe and struck him from behind. He dropped instantly. The upload bar blinked, 99%, then complete. Claire hit send. The relay tower's lights flickered, the signal beaming into the night sky. It was done. We stood there, gasping, soaked, trembling, the sound of the waves crashing below. Claire looked at me, tears glinting in her eyes. It's over, she whispered, but deep down I knew this was just the beginning, because once the truth was out, there was no taking it back. By morning, the storm had passed, but the air still carried that heavy stillness that follows chaos. The lighthouse stood battered by wind, the waves calmer now, licking at the rocks below like nothing had happened. The servers back at the facility were gone, probably destroyed by the men who chased us, but it didn't matter anymore. The upload was complete. The world would wake up to the truth. Claire sat at the edge of the cliff, wrapped in my jacket, staring out at the water. The first rays of sunlight hit her face, and for a moment she looked peaceful, like someone who had finally exhaled after years of holding her breath. I handed her a thermos of coffee from the truck. She smiled faintly, her hands still trembling as she took it. News is going to spread fast, I said. By noon, every news outlet in the country will have it. She nodded slowly. They'll come after us, you know. Probably, I said, but now they'll have bigger problems. She gave a quiet laugh that turned into a sigh. You really didn't have to get involved in all this. I leaned against the railing beside her. You showed up with a broken car and a secret that was too big to ignore. Maybe that was fate. For a long time we sat in silence, the ocean whispering below. Then faintly in the distance I heard sirens, police, maybe federal agents, maybe something worse. Claire looked toward the sound, her expression hardening again. What happens now? I asked. She didn't answer right away. My father always said the truth costs more than people think. He wasn't wrong. Before I could respond, my phone buzzed. The number was unknown. Against my better judgment, I answered. Mr. Hayes, a man's voice said, smooth and calm. You've caused quite a ripple. Who is this? What? You can call me what everyone else did, Helton. The name hit like a punch. You should probably be talking to the FBI, I said. He chuckled softly. Oh, they'll get their share soon enough. But you and I both know they'll never understand what's really at stake. You think exposing numbers and bank accounts will destroy me. The game doesn't end because someone uploaded a few files. You stole billions, I said. People lost everything because of you. And you think pressing send changes that? His voice darkened. What you did was release chaos into a world that thrives on control. You'll learn soon enough what it feels like when the people who run it decide to erase your name from it. Then the line went dead. I stared at the phone, the words sinking like stones. Claire watched me carefully. What did he say? That he's not done. She exhaled slowly, looking back toward the horizon. He's bluffing. Once the files hit the public record, it's over. Part of me wasn't sure. People like Helton didn't vanish when the light hit them, they just found darker corners to hide in. By noon, news alerts began pinging across every phone and screen. Corporate empire exposed in multi-billion-dollar fraud scandal. Alan Reeves' daughter reveals hidden fortune. Reporters filled the coastal roads by afternoon and helicopters circled above. Claire and I stayed inside the lighthouse, watching it unfold from the window. They called it the Reeve Revelation. The documents had gone global, dozens of governments, corporations, and charities linked to the hidden accounts. The world was outraged and investigations launched overnight. For the first time in years, the truth was louder than the lies, but even with the chaos outside, something inside me felt calm. Maybe it was exhaustion, or maybe it was the strange satisfaction of knowing that for once doing the right thing hadn't been for nothing. Claire turned to me. "You should go," she said softly. "Before this turns into something worse. I'm not leaving you here alone." "You've done enough," she said. "My father wanted me to finish this, and now that it's done, I have to face what comes next." I hesitated. "You don't owe anyone an apology for what he did." "What?" "It's not about apology," she said. "It's about closure." That word lingered, closure, something I hadn't felt in years myself. Maybe that's why I couldn't walk away. The next few days blurred together. Federal agents swarmed the coast, collecting evidence, securing statements. Claire was taken into protective custody for her testimony. They offered me the same, but I declined. I wasn't the hero of this story. I was just the guy who happened to fix the wrong car on the right day. One afternoon before she left, Claire found me standing by the dock. The sun was dipping low again, painting the water gold. She handed me a small envelope. "My father wrote this before he disappeared," she said. "I found it in the car this morning. It's addressed to you." I frowned. "To me?" "What?" She nodded. "He must have known you'd help me." She smiled faintly, then walked away with the agents, her figure fading into the glare of the sunset. I stood there for a long moment before opening the envelope. Inside was a short handwritten note. "Ethan, when you find this, I'll already be gone. I don't know you, but I trust you will understand what I couldn't explain to anyone else. Sometimes the smallest acts, repairing something broken, helping someone lost, become the cracks where truth seeps through. Take care of her. She'll need someone who still believes in fixing things." I folded the letter carefully and slipped it into my jacket. The ocean breeze carried the faint sound of sirens far away, but here on the shore it felt quiet again. In the weeks that followed, I reopened my shop. Customers came and went, engines hummed, life found its rhythm. But every now and then I'd catch myself glancing at that same workbench where it all started, the place where a trembling girl had left her car and changed everything. The news eventually moved on. The world found new scandals to chase, new names to drag through the mud. But one story remained buried beneath it all, the story of a mechanic who fixed more than just an engine. Late one evening, as I locked up the shop, headlights flashed outside. A sleek black sedan pulled up. For a second, my chest tightened. Then the door opened and Claire stepped out. She looked different, stronger, lighter. "You're back," I said. She smiled. "I told you I don't like leaving things unfinished." "What?" I laughed softly. "Neither do I." She handed me a folder. Inside were blueprints for a new foundation, Reeve Initiative. It was named after her father, but built for the people who'd lost everything because of men like Helton. "We'll need someone to help rebuild it," she said. "Someone who knows what it means to start from nothing." I looked at her, then at the papers, and finally at my grease-stained hands. "Yeah," I said quietly, "I think I know a guy." The sea breeze swept through the air again, carrying the scent of salt and hope. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't running from something. I was heading toward it.